Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell in the upper right-hand corner. Follow me on all forms of social media. Check me out at thatdrummerguy.com and enjoy the following presentation. Hi, how's it going?
Josh, very nice talking to you.
It's great to be able to talk to you again as well. Thank you very much for taking the time to do this interview.
Hey, pleasure. I'm here. It's Wednesday evening, 8 o'clock in the evening. I had my first glass of red wine, so I'm in a very good spirit. All good here.
Oh, fantastic. Well, again, thank you very much for taking the time to do this, and what an exciting time to be in your position right now. I mean, being able to just get done touring with Demons and Wizards, and now next Friday, after over 2 decades of working on it, the Blind Guardian Twilight Orchestra album, Legacy of the Dark Lands, is coming out through Nuclear Blast.
You call that exciting, I call that demanding at the moment. I can feel it in my body. I can feel it very, very clearly that I need some rest. It's a very exciting time, you're right. Demons and Wizards was a blast. It was a demanding blast. We did a lot in a very short amount of time. We have had a little more than 6 months to accomplish an album, prepare the touring, and do these shows. So that alone was an accomplishment. At the same time, we still were doing mastering and mixing for Blind Guardian for the orchestral album, and at the same time also promotion for both bands started. So right now I'm a little mixed up sometimes. Legacy of the Darklands obviously is for myself the magnus opus of Blind Guardian and maybe the magnus opus of my career. We started working on this one in 1996, and that was during Nightfall in Middle-earth, having 2 songs which were so different that we finally decided not to use them for Nightfall, but instead of that establish a new style and a new sort of music, which we over the years always called the orchestral album and the orchestral Blind Guardian music. It takes us to the year 2019, where finally all the stuff has been accomplished, and we will be able to make it public to the people.
And, with 23 years of being able to work on this album, I mean, did you ever get the feeling that this was never going to come out?
Yes. Especially over the last 5 years. I mean, the first time I really announced that album to be released is maybe 10 years ago, where I was sure, well, the next thing we're going to do is going back to the studio and then finishing this album, including, all the recordings. But it never came to happen because Blind Guardian is such a big thing for us, and all the albums we did in between needed the time they needed, not only production-wise, but also for touring and songwriting, of course, as well. But especially once we started singing in, when was it? I think 2017, I was quite sure that the album was about to be finished. And then finding out every day, well, we still have to find a way how I can conquer the orchestral, the orchestra, so it will be to my liking. That really was almost driving me into a desperate spot, because it seemed to be a mission impossible at points. There is so much dynamic and energy in an orchestra, and singing to it as the only alien was quite an experience. And at that point, I was almost, afraid of not being able to accomplish that one.
Well, I am so personally thankful that it did work out the way that it did, and it is finally coming out next Friday through Nuclear Blast. Getting the chance to be able to check out this album over the last week, just like you said, it feels like it is the magnum opus for Blind Guardian and for yourself personally. Like, some of what you accomplish on this, I mean, with your range, your melodies, and how work you well with an orchestra, just completely made my jaw drop on so many times. And you've already done that so many times in the past, no matter what project you've been a part of. And it's so great to hear this in this kind of setting.
That was the surprising thing for us, and that struck me by surprise how difficult it was when working on the orchestra. When starting doing these songs, we were obviously not working with an orchestra, but with a programmed library with a computer, with a keyboard. And that allowed me to really shine to this stuff. And it was really easy for me to master all these compositions while doing the songwriting. And we had a very good feeling how my voice would sound alone with the orchestra. That is the reason why we decided not to use a band as an addition to the whole thing. But when working with an orchestra and having these dynamics, I was so overwhelmed by the power that I thought, well, it's going to take a while until I really am able to, compete with, such musicianship. And so we really had to adjust to it, not so much because of the voice itself, but because of the intensity. Because we just felt, well, if I go too much into a Blind Guardian heavy direction, then I would spoil the fine dynamics of the orchestra. On the other hand, we felt if I go too much into an opera direction, I would deny the Blind Guardian origin. So getting that exact mode was something we really worked on for at least 6 or 7 months until we really knew, well, this is the way I need to treat each and every track. So saying that, I sang that album with all the layers and everything on there at least 3 times in a proper version, just different intensities.
Yeah, and, that's just so incredible to see that, too. And, the fact that, sure, it took 6 to 7 months to figure out how to properly do the vocals on there, but it was so perfect the way that it came out. I mean, whether you're going full-on intensity, whether you're going more operatic, whether you're just letting the orchestra shine and you're just adding to the melodies and harmonies that are going on there. I mean, it just feels like such perfection of what you were able to accomplish vocally.
Thank you. I mean, that's always great to hear. We really worked a lot on during the songwriting already in doing these clear definitions. That can be said about the orchestra, and that also can be said about my set of vocal arrangements. Andre and I really paid a lot of attention prior to starting any production. And once Charlie Bauerfeind has been involved as a producer, we did a lot of pre-production. So when doing that final step, which still took more than a year to me to accomplish, I was very well prepared and I was aware of what I was supposed to do. But as said, to find the right tuning in terms of intensity to the orchestra is an accomplishment, and I'm really happy and proud about it. Funny thing is, if you had a chance to listen back to these pre-productions, you would feel, wow, he was good back then already. But, I first have to find a way to match these pre-production because I can improve. And in many cases, we went far beyond that pre-production, which is barely ever the case, It's something which we musicians call demoitis. You are so relaxed in doing your pre-productions and demos that sometimes they sound better than the final production. But with regard to Legacy of the Dark Land, that was not an option for me. So I always tried to go a little further than I usually would.
That's just incredible to hear that, too. I mean, I can imagine with the early pre-production demos and how fantastic they must sound, but the fact that you did want to push yourself, the fact that you wanted to go beyond what you think you could possibly do and really prove that you can reach that next level of progression in your voice and songwriting and musical ability. I mean, when people get the chance to be able to check this out, I think they're going to be feeling the same way, and it's great to see that after all this time that you continue to have that passion to want to progress what you can do.
That's a good thing about being in a band like Blind Guardian. We take our time and we really just do things we want to do. It's not like anyone is forcing us to be part in Blind Guardian or to do certain music which we might not relate to. This is not the case. I mean, obviously, with a project in process for 23 years, there must be a lot of passion. But in general, when doing music, I don't think about the time I've been in that. It's still the same excitement, and I'm not nervous when I'm in the studio, but I'm really excited, and there will be points in a production I'm now aware of where I will totally question everything I'm doing at the moment, and there are other moments, and these are the magic moments, when I myself just feel I'm 100% on top of the game, and of course, these are the moments I am chasing for, and these are the moments Charlie Bauerfeind, as a producer, is chasing for. And these moments cannot be created; they come instantly, But you really have to just work, and enjoy what you're doing, and forget about anything. I have no idea how people will finally relate to it. Maybe there are people who will not be able to capture the magic of it because the metal band is not involved, but it is exactly what we wanted to do right now, and this gives me such a good feeling, and it almost gives me the chance to even look at it as an outsider. I'm not depending on anything. I'm just sure that this is a masterpiece. What can I say?
Well, I feel the same way as well, and I know that could have been a hard decision whether to have the full Blind Guardian band being a part of this or not. I mean, there is obviously some positives to have had the whole band a part of it, but it may not have turned out as well as it had you been focusing so much on the electric guitars and the double bass and everything that goes into Blind Guardian songs, but rather focusing on this orchestral moment, so focusing on the story and just making this the orchestra masterpiece that it deserved to be. I'm glad that you went this direction, and it's something that I can easily keep going back to and discovering new things behind it. Your vocal layering, the musics, the undertones that's going under with it. I mean, there's so many reasons to keep going back to this album.
I agree, and I'm happy to hear it. I believe there are a lot of people who will discover that this is exactly what it is. It gives you the opportunity again to explore the whole thing many, many times. And I would be surprised if someone tells me after 10 listenings, I've heard everything and I now know the album and I dislike it. I cannot imagine. I think even people who may not like the album, who may not like the whole style, will appreciate the effort of work which has been put in and will hopefully embrace the creativity the whole thing delivers. There is a lot to discover, and I believe that people over the years again will really find out how not only how much work has been in there, but how entertaining it is. When we do this stuff, we of course feel rather quickly a natural connection to it. So for us, it is not so far off than a regular Blind Guardian song. It really is in the line with all the Blind Guardian stuff. We just feel exactly what you mentioned. It does not require a band, and it still expresses the same amount or even more amount of beauty than a regular Blind Guardian album does. And we ourselves have been thrilled by that fact when we started the whole songwriting. And you're right, we have been tempted, and there are points where you could say, wouldn't it be a good idea to involve the band? We have been on at that point at least 3 or 4 times, during the process of songwriting and even in the process of production, there was a discussion like that. But at the very end, the result of this discussion was unisono the same. We should stick to what we originally have had in mind, no matter what the costs are, because this is what the music is about, and it still speaks to us. So if it does that, it should speak to other people as well.
And I'm absolutely one of those people. I mean, obviously with just being able to have this album over the last few days into a week now, I haven't been able to digest this album as much as I have the back Blind Guardian catalog, but I do love this album as much as any Blind Guardian album in the past, and it does have that same fire and intensity and power, majestic feel that any of the previous albums have, and it just feels great to be able to see this side of Blind Guardian after all this time, and it just makes me so excited to see what will happen with Blind Guardian in the future, knowing that this side has been accomplished.
Well, I'm excited myself. What I can say is, obviously, I was the one working the most on this album for the last 2 years. Especially Andre has had some off time, and he, of course, used that opportunity to come up with some Blind Guardian songs. So we are not empty-handed there. And we're going to start the production for the next regular Blind Guardian album in the beginning of 2020. I'd say in January, February, we will hit the studio again and then accomplish the album. And what we're having right now is very progressive. It is, of course, intense, and there is a metal band involved. I can promise that. But it's still more orchestral, or at least more classical than I would have expected it myself. So people will get, the album after the orchestral album, which is still, in the same direction, I would say.
Oh, that's incredible. I mean, again, going back to what I was saying in the beginning, I mean, it's incredible and exciting to be in your position right now, but I can also imagine just how demanding it is. I mean, with being able to put the final touches on this orchestra album, beginning work on the next Blind Guardian album as a metal band, and then also the new Demons and Wizards, too. I mean, there's just so much going on in your world right now.
Yeah, it's overwhelming. I'm surprised it worked out that well, I tried to keep my focus as good as I could on the different missions whenever there was a need, and a certain time frame dedicated to whatever mission I was on. So things went out very well. I'm really excited to see how people will react, especially on the Demons and Wizards album coming out, I think, 4 months after Legacy of the Dark Land, and it's going to show the exact opposite of Legacy of the Dark Land. It's Let Your Hair Down Straight album, with diverse songs, which of course will also surprise people, because the songs on there are so different, each and every one. But on the other hand, there are so much Demons and Wizards. I'm really, really curious to see, how people relate to that, especially with knowing that the orchestral album has been released a little before. And yeah, during the same time working on the Blind Guardian album, that is quite challenging still, but everything is set up, and so far I have to say I'm still able to straighten my mind for a couple of hours a day.
Oh yeah, and that's so important. I mean, the fact that you're able to sit down right now, just being able to relax, I mean, still talking business, of course, but being able to sit down with some wine and just being able to unwind a little bit, not focusing so much on the next album, not focusing on upcoming touring or anything, but just able to relax a couple hours a day. I mean, I can just imagine how great of a feeling that is, considering how much work that you do put into everything you do.
Exactly. I mean, I'm listening to the stuff, Legacy of the Dark Lands and the new Demons and Wizards stuff, and I'm of course enjoying that also. It's part of my work, obviously. I need to cross-check things, but it's also enjoyable time. And there's Christmas. I'm sure I will not work around the Christmas time. That's my main aim at the moment. Just getting there and then really having, let's say, 7 to 10 days without anything but the pure entertainment of the family, and maybe listening to some good music which is not related to Demons and Wizards or Blind Guardian. That's also something I'm really looking forward to. But this is also something I'm doing at the moment. I still find my time to read some great stories or listen to some good stuff. I'm still working on my hi-fi equipment and try to get my turntable running, the new one. So, there is still, I mean, what I'm doing, of course, it's my profession, but it is a passion, it's a dedication, it is a lifestyle, so it doesn't feel like work most of the time.
Oh, and that's so important. I mean, when you're able to have that strive and that passion for what you do musically, and you never have to compromise your vision, and you can still have fun with what you're doing. I mean, you never work a day in your life if you're having fun doing what you do.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, if people are able to find a dedication, a job, an occupation, a life, where they still make money with, what should be the reason to complain about that?
Oh, very much so. And I'm glad to see that you are in that position right now. And again, with everything that's going on in your world right now, with the Blind Guardian Twilight Orchestra, coming out next Friday through Nuclear Blast. The next Blind Guardian album soon to be in pre-production and getting into the studio for that. And of course, the new Demons and Wizards, which I am so looking forward to as well. Being able to check out the Minneapolis show back in August, that was easily one of my favorite shows that I've ever been to. And I can honestly say I've never heard a better version of I Died for You than hearing you on vocals and hearing John play that. It was just incredible to hear you being able to do that amongst all the Blind Guardian, Iced Earth, and Demons and Wizards songs. And I'm so glad to see that Demons and Wizards was able to come back over here and get ready for that third album.
Well, the US tour and or the North American tour, including Canada, was a blast. I was really happy doing that. I never thought about that. If you told me that 2 years ago, I would say no. Demons and Wizards in the US in a far, far future, but certainly not within the next 2 years. But sometimes things just happening, and one has to take the opportunities, no matter what the costs might be. I really enjoyed doing the Iced Earth stuff. I Died for You is one of my favorite songs. We also had Melancholy on the list for a while, which I would love to do as well. But we needed some harder stuff, so then we decided to go for Burning Times, which is a great song as well. It went really good. I mean, also the band playing Valhalla and Welcome to Dying was pure fun. Obviously, the people loved these 4 songs of Iced Earth and Blind Guardian we were playing. Because they are more familiar to them as well, at least in a live setup. But I was struck by the response we got for all the Demons and Wizards songs, but in general with Fiddler on the Green, when people really went, they didn't went nuts. That does not really comfort and fit to the song, but you know what I mean. It's really moving people.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when you played Beneath the Waves and knowing what that song is about, I actually did start tearing up when I finally got to hear that live, because I relate to that song so much, and it was great to be able to finally hear that in a live setting, because not getting the chance to be able to go over to Europe yet in my life, I never thought I was going to get the opportunity to hear that live, and then just having that all combined together like that, it just made for a magical night for me.
I'm happy to hear that. Beneath These Waves, we didn't play every night, so that was the bad spot, because that song really deserved to be played every night, and it has a lot of supporters. You would be surprised. I mean, you're not the only one.
Oh, it's incredible. And, I'm glad to see that was such a staple in that set. And like you mentioned before, I mean, the Blind Guardian songs, the Iced Earth songs, and the Demons and Wizards songs, of course. I mean, being able to do that tour and, anything that comes in the future with that, I'm just so grateful that there was even one opportunity to be able to see you live, let alone anything that comes in the future. And yeah, I think with that, I think that's a great note to end on. And thank you so very much for taking this time to be able to talk to me about everything going on in your world right now. And of course, the brand new album from Blind Guardian Twilight Orchestra, Legacy of the Darklands, coming out next Friday through Nuclear Blast. And I truly appreciate you taking this time.
Well, it's been great fun talking to you, Josh. And hope to see you somewhere or talk about any of the projects during the next weeks or month.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, anytime there's an opportunity to be able to talk to you again, be it Demons and Wizards, Blind Guardian, or anything else you got going on, I'd love to do it.
Highly appreciate it. Have a good evening.
You as well. All right, bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.